whatever it is, but
okay. All right. Good morning, everyone, and hi there. My name is Anthony Dutra. I will be your guide to hacking today in the COBRE Hackathon. A little bit about myself. I am co-director of Block MMP, third place winner of the 2019 Hackathon. And for 15 minutes today, I'm just going to share with you guys two tools that really make hacking a lot easier. It creates both a place for you and your team to collaborate on ideas in an effective manner. You only have a short amount of time, so you want to get valuable insight within that time. So we'll be doing that with Miro boards, showing you what that looks like super quick and some of the tools inside of there. And then we'll be looking at a tool called Figma. And really what that online collaboration tool allows you to do is pull in, many different images of what a mobile application would look like, what a website would look like. So you have templates available already there to you to sort of click and drag things, copy, paste in an interactive fashion, and try to build something to present by the end of the weekend. So I'm going to share my screen first, kind of talking about at a high level what Block MMP is, kind of what we heard during our time, and how we use technology to help change it. So really what we heard from a particular doctor when we first started was that people with opioid use disorder are going to their clinics, and when they're asking for their dosage, they are finding out that if they belong to a separate clinic, not the one that they're going to, then they will be required at the clinic to call that person's original clinic. So there is a network of just phone calls and faxes to many different opioid clinics throughout the state that if communication is not properly met, that person is not giving their dose of Suboxone or any other drug that may help them. So what is happening is patients are leaving against medical advice, right? They're going out into the streets to find alternatives. And what we're finding is if we try to centralize much of this information, right, the patient's name, how much they're taking per day, people are finding that there is a stigma and this sort of surveillance associated with it that is keeping them off of or really out of the clinics. And this centers around a big problem, which I think was a theme throughout we hear through all the presentations yesterday, is trust, right? How do we get people to trust much of the medical systems that we have in place in order to ensure that they're properly taken care of? So what we did is, after listening to one particular problem, is create a small blockchain which allows only specific doctors, people within a network, to access the administration data of a particular person that is also on our network. So what we've basically done is decentralized much of the administration sharing of information process and just simplified it into a simple web-based tool that doctors can easily access, and there's a low sort of barrier to entry of knowledge for everybody that's involved in the network to access this info. So during the time of the hackathon, we used a lot of tools, but throughout the years, I've found that a couple of them are really, really useful. The first one, especially now that you guys are in this sort of forming phase this early on, is called Miro. And as I mentioned before, Miro is just this online brainstorming tool that helps you organize your thoughts into these many different domains. And I have here three in particular that I find really helpful and that are super interesting, that kind of sit outside the norm of just, okay, we're doing customer workflows. The first one is called Rosebud Thorn. And it's really to kind of take all the information that you might have heard yesterday or even that are learning today and putting it into these three different domains to kind of form a better problem conversation and really get your team thinking outside of the box. So the rose, everything here on the pink sticky notes that you would see, signifies a success. So, what is working well within some of the processes that we are seeing today? It is good that we are keeping a lot of our data private on patients, and it is good that we're facilitating much of the conversation in the community about opioid use disorder with people who are still using. So, try to think of things that are going well, things that are challenging, and how those areas fit into place there. And then these buds here signify, what is potential that you can maybe open up and really start forming an application idea, a simple, I don't know, website around fixing some of these challenges and seeing how they, can maybe create a success or formulate also on top of another success. The second tool I like to show you guys is the How Now matrix. Super, super simple tool, but what it does, it really allows you to bring things down to feasible levels. So the how section here is used to describe an idea that's innovative, but might be a little crazy. So a good example I like to use is we're trying to build our own currency in order to, I don't know, facilitate the sale of Schedule 2 drugs, right? Okay, well that's great because you're trying to build an economy that's a lot easier and more tracked. But in order to do that is going to take a lot more time. Maybe we can now talk about what would be a wow improvement that would still be easy to build, but may fall within that same domain. So going back to it, can we instead just create a database of people are using this substance or this one, so we're sharing information rather than creating an economy around it. And then using the now section to just describe ideas that are already familiar and are used well today. So kind of going a little bit away from the current example I just used, if we think about things like chatting or online community building tools, look to places like Facebook and see what they're doing today already. You might be rebuilding the wheel, or like they might have a feature in there that you might find interesting that you can adopt. So really, again, this template, the How Now matrix, How Now Wow matrix, is about taking the crazy ideas, seeing how seeing if you could bring them back down to a feasible state, and then seeing what else is out there to maybe build something that's a little bit more cohesive throughout. And then finally is the service blueprint template. So again, everybody can log in at the same time on Miro, jump in and be working together on these particular boards. It's a little bit slow to show, but you can click and drag and edit everything. So everything is absolutely movable and you can play around. But this last one is really kind of that workflow of what is our idea doing from start to finish, and what does that value chain look like in terms of our customers. What does our customers interaction look like with whether it's our website or just our telephone company, whoever that they're trying to call. What does the back of that back end process look like? Do we have to talk to this clinic? How are we engaging with this particular doctor? How are we onboarding them into our process? And then who will help support much of the process? So this really allows to give you a step back, 100-foot view of what you're building from a process perspective and how that all interacts and plays nicely together. All right, so now that you and your team have kind of gone through maybe a couple of these tools on Miro, you've experimented, collaborated a bit together. Now it's time to go in and sort of start drafting something. This is another tool that we have linked in there called Figma. Figma is a little bit different from Miro in the fact that it's more focused and centered around building that user interface and user experience designs. And what's great even about Miro is that you'll be able to produce something that you can show in a presentation to the judges at the end, right? You don't necessarily have to code anything. It's just good to show, hey, here's how the app would work, and we can create a flow around it. So Figma has already some templates made for you. I have a Figma account, so this is something that you would see similarly once you log in. you go right here to drafts. And if you just scroll right down to prototyping in Figma, this is going to have a very similar interface to how Miro is, where you can move freely around. Everybody can join in at once. And you guys can click in throughout, building each of these screens. So let's just zoom in, right? They already have a lot of nice templates here where this is what the logout screen would look like for this particular app. You can delete this, photo back here, copy these, and paste them on your own section and really just collaborate screen by screen as to, okay, what is this thing going to look like? I would suggest spending a lot of your time, really the end of day today, early tomorrow, in this tool here, building something out. If you're not a UX UI expert, what's really great is that, right, everything is just click and drag. You can copy paste things from outside of the Figma platform into here if you want to put a logo, other buttons. So this screen right here, prototyping in Figma, will give you a mobile app background, where the wireframing in Figma will give you a template for a website. So once this loads up, very similar to what we've seen in the mobile app side of things, where, okay, you see the top of a web page, and there's a lot of things that you see here that you'll point out that you won't really think about. So logging in, right? What does that process look like for your users? Is going to be different for a doctor logging into your potential website than it is a person with opioid use disorder. So a lot of things to think about. These two tools in particular are absolutely fantastic in building out those ideas, and being able to just put to visualizations the words that are kind of banging around in your head. So I have on here also, as I kind of wrap up my time, a document on Hacking 101, where I go into a little bit of detail of what I just presented to you guys. You can click the link to find Miro here, talk about how each of these tools are used and what you can do in terms of an example. Building your submission in Figma, right? You don't have to use these tools, but again, just another great thing to visualize and put on a final presentation to look something that's impressive. Some questions to think about as you do it. And then I kind of put a little section here in terms of bringing it all together, put the judging criteria and rubric there for you. And then this didn't finish completely, but each of these is basically stating like, okay, if you're going to, have a clear problem definition, hopefully you've done that, today in the beginning, you're using Miro to kind of build all of that together. For originality, innovation, and creativity, really, again, leverage Miro and Figma to kind of show that creativity and innovation through each of those, service workflows, my UI of the mobile app, how that all plays together nicely. Again, the impact and viability will all, again, just sort of fall through with those items that you say. So at this time, I would love to take, I guess, any questions on the tools themselves, the hacking process, or if anybody has anything, definitely open to communicate throughout this whole hackathon and to help out. Awesome. Yeah, absolutely, Gail. So it was interesting for sure. I remember the first night just kind of listening and soaking in much of what you heard last night also. You hear, a lot from, doctors and statistics. You hear a lot about, inequalities, and it's easy to get very excited and try to jump into, trying to save the world. But what I kind of took away from the first one is try to pinpoint something that's as feasible as possible. And again, visualize much of that process and incorporate your passions into that process itself. So it doesn't have to. So I guess my first experience takeaway was, make this first process as iterative and clear, right? Clearly define your problem and work on it from there. And then what I also kind of took away too is when you're, building your teams, really stick to your roles and don't be, don't get too excited or jump ahead of yourselves. Try to stay within everybody, stay organized, and really the overall experience is going to be a positive one if you work collaboratively. It's not about winning at the end, like I mentioned yesterday, right? The money's used to help make a change. So if your idea does that, like I experienced in my first hackathon, then you'll have a positive one overall too.